Mazarin is better lodged, said Aramis. Mazarin is almost king, answered Athos. Madame Henrietta is almost no longer queen. If you would condescend to be clever, Athos, observed Aramis, I really do think you would be wittier than poor Monsieur de Voiture. Athos smiled. The queen appeared to be impatiently expecting them, for at the first slight noise she heard in the hall leading to her room she came herself to the door to receive these courtiers in the corridors of misfortune. "Enter. You are welcome, gentlemen," she said. The gentlemen entered and remained standing, but at a motion from the queen they seated themselves. Athos was calm and grave, but Aramis was furious. The sight of such royal misery exasperated him, and his eyes examined every new trace of poverty that presented itself. "You are examining the luxury I enjoy," said the queen, glancing sadly around her. "Madame," replied Aramis, "I must ask your pardon, but I know not how to hide my indignation at seeing how a daughter of Henry Ivy is treated at the court of France." "Monsieur Aramis is not an officer," asked the queen of Lord de Winter. "That gentleman is the Abbé d'Herblay," replied he. Aramis blushed. "Madame," he said, "I am an abbé, it is true, but I am so against my will. I never had a vocation for the bands, my cassock is fastened by one button only, and I am always ready to become a musketeer once more. This morning, being ignorant that I should have the honour of seeing your majesty, I encumbered myself with this dress, but you will find me none the less a man devoted to your majesty's service, in whatever way you may see fit to use me." "The Abbé d'Herblay," resumed De Winter, "is one of those gallant musketeers formerly belonging to His Majesty King Louis XIII, of whom I have spoken to you. Madame," then turning to Athos, he continued, "and this gentleman is that noble Comte de la Fère, whose high reputation is so well known to your majesty." "Gentlemen," said the queen, "a few years ago I had around me ushers, treasures, armies, and by the lifting of a finger all these were busied in my service. Today, look around you, and it may astonish you that in order to accomplish a plan which is dearer to me than life, I have only Lord de Winter, the friend of 20 years, and you, gentlemen, whom I see for the first time and whom I know but as my countrymen." "It is enough," said Athos, bowing low, "if the lives of 3 men can purchase yours. Madame, I thank you, gentlemen, but hear me," continued she. "I am not only the most miserable of queens, but the most unhappy of mothers, the most wretched of wives. My children, 2 of them, at least, the Duke of York and the Princess Elizabeth, are far away from me, exposed to the blows of the ambitious and our foes. My husband, the king, is leading in England so wretched an existence that it is no exaggeration to aver that he seeks death as a thing to be desired. Hold, gentlemen, here is the letter conveyed to me by Lord de Winter. Read it, obeying the queen." Athos read aloud the letter which we have already seen, in which King Charles demanded to know whether the hospitality of France would be accorded him. "Well," asked Athos, when he had closed the letter. "Well," said the queen, "it has been refused." The 2 friends exchanged a smile of contempt. "And now," said Athos, "what is to be done? I have the honour to inquire from your majesty what you desire Monsieur d'Herblay and myself to do in your service. We are ready." "Ah, sir, you have a noble heart!" exclaimed the queen, with a burst of gratitude, whilst Lord de Winter turned to her with a glance which said, "Did I not answer for them? But you, sir," said the queen to Aramis. "I, madame," replied he, "follow Monsieur de la Fère wherever he leads, even were it on to death, without demanding wherefore, but when it concerns your majesty's service. Then," added he, looking at the queen with all the grace of former days, I precede the count. Well, then, gentlemen, said the queen, since it is thus, and since you are willing to devote yourselves to the service of a poor princess whom the whole world has abandoned, this is what is required to be done for me. The king is alone with a few gentlemen, whom he fears to lose every day, surrounded by the Scotch, whom he distrusts, although he be himself a Scotchman. Since Lord de Winter left him I am distracted. Sirs, I ask much, too much, perhaps, for I have no title to request it. Go to England, join the king, be his friends, protectors, march to battle at his side, and be near him in his house, where conspiracies, more dangerous than the perils of war, are hatching every day, and in exchange for the sacrifice that you make, gentlemen, I promise not to reward you. I believe that word would offend you, but to love you as a sister, to prefer you next to my husband and my children. To every one I swear it before heaven." And the queen raised her eyes solemnly upward. "Madame," said Athos, "when must we set out?" "You consent, then?" exclaimed the queen, joyfully. "Yes, madame, only it seems to me that your majesty goes too far in engaging to load us with a friendship so far above our merit. We render service to God, madame, in serving a prince so unfortunate, a queen so virtuous. Madame, we are yours, body and soul. Oh, sirs," said the queen, moved even to tears, "this is the first time for 5 years I have felt the least approach to joy or hope. God, who can read my heart, all the gratitude I feel, will reward you. Save my husband, save the king, and although you care not for the price that is placed upon a good action in this world, leave me the hope that we shall meet again, when I may be able to thank you myself. In the meantime, I remain here. Have you anything to ask of me? From this moment I become your friend, and since you are engaged in my affairs I ought to occupy myself in yours,